Okay, so good morning to everybody. I wish you all the best for this press meeting, quite unusual because it's the first time we have the pleasure to welcome the Kirghiz people, Kirghizistan Republic here for presenting an important event, the World Nomad Games 2016. They will take place in autumn, in September this year, and I think it's quite interesting to have this presentation and this explanation about this cultural heritage of the nomadic culture and nomad people in Central Asia. So thank you again, Mr. Ambassador, to be here. Mr. Mukashev is the permanent representative of Kirghizistan here in Geneva, the United Nations, and thanks to Mr. Akaev to join us also directly from Kyrgyzstan. He arrived just yesterday, I guess, for visiting us, so thanks to be here, and thanks also for our translator. So I would like to ask you to sign our golden book, just a signature there. And also, I wish to give you the little souvenir. Okay, thanks a lot. Okay. Voilà, it's a little cartoon, catalog, yes, digital. So, now I would like to give you the floor. Mr. Ambassador, I think we will start, so please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to Mr. Mitan for his kindness and for his readiness to jointly organize this press conference. And also I would like to thank the Member of the Parliament of Kirghizistan, Mr. Zhanarbek Akaev, who, as Mr. Mitan has indicated, had arrived just yesterday, and we are more than happy that you, ladies and gentlemen, have joined us at the press conference, which is dedicated to the upcoming World Nomad Games. And I would like to start with telling you about the background of this upcoming event. So in 2012, President of Kirghizistan, Mr. Atambayev, had put forward an initiative to organize the World Nomad Games, and this idea of our president was welcomed and endorsed by his counterparts from Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Turkey. And these four countries, including Kyrgyzstan, as you know, are members of the Cooperation Councils of Turkic-speaking countries. And having received the endorsement of his counterparts and our colleagues, Kyrgyzstan made a decision to host the first Nomad Games, and these games were held at the beginning of September 2014. And the Nomad Games in 2014 were held on the shore of Issyk-Koul Lake. So I would like just to inform you that Issyk-Koul Lake is one of the wonderful places in our country. It is one of the 25 largest lakes in the world and one of the 6 steepest lakes in the world. So the main idea, the main mission of this initiative was the preservation and renaissance of the culture, identity and lifestyles of peoples who belong to the nomadic civilization. And another mission was to revive the general cultural heritage of the nomadic civilization. And this idea and this objective was put forward not at the expense of, I would say, other civilizations. No, the main idea was to unite peoples, and this idea was widely accepted. And so the first games, as I said, were held in 2014. This event was consisting of three major components. The first one is the ethno-sport, the second one ethno-cultural, and the third one is ethno-scientific. The athletes from more than 19 countries had participated in the first games, and they contested in 10 sport disciplines. You know that in September 2008, almost 8 years ago, in South Korea, the UNESCO made a so-called Busan Appeal, and the appeal was confirmed the importance of traditional games and sports as a vehicle for tolerance, integration, cultural awareness. The main idea of that Busan Appeal was to develop, to restore and preserve the traditional games and sports. So just brief description of the nomadic civilization. Nomadic civilization harmoniously coexisted with the nature. So contrary to the widely held stereotypes that the culture, the lifestyle of nomadic people were purely militaristic, I would like to inform you, ladies and gentlemen, that nomadic people in peaceful time and in a free time, I would say, in their ordinary life, they used to play national games and sports, so that have come down to us from the ancient times. And since that experience was quite successful, our president, Mr. Atambayev, made a decision to host the second World Nomad Games. And again, these games would be held in Kirghizistan, and again on the shore of Issyk-Koul Lake. But this time we're expanding, I would say, the magnitude of these games, because this time we have increased the number of sport disciplines from 10, as it was in 2015, to 23. And that would be a festival of combat sports, horse racing, and the horse competition, archery contest, and demonstration of different types of hunting with the hunting birds. And so this time we're expecting the athletes, about 2,000 athletes from more than 40 countries. And again, the main event, the sports events, will be held on the main hippodrome of Chopana town. That is one of the recreational and resort centers of Issyk-Koul Lake. And aside from the sport dimension, as I said, we would have the ethno festival in a wonderful, splendid place called Kirghizistan, George. We will hold the ethno festival, and the ancient traditional yurta dwelling city will be rebuilt with more than 300 pillars, and people and guests will be able to witness the show demonstrating the date of the birth of child through his first steps, and to the exhibition of all these handicrafts. So, as I said, there would be around 23 sport festivals, and now we're receiving applications from all over the world, and we're expecting that this event in September would attract attention of the world community. In 2014, the games were covered by more than 250 journalists and cameramen from more than 30 countries, and this time we're expecting even more journalists and cameramen coming from different countries to cover this event. So in order not to take too much time, I would like to emphasize once again that the main mission of these games is to revive our culture and unite people through sports, folk festival, and culture. And taking this opportunity, I would like to invite all of you citizens of Switzerland, where we are now, and guests from all over the world, to visit Kyrgyzstan this coming September, and to see not only the games themselves, but also the beauty of the country, the wonderful landscape of Kyrgyzstan. And you will have a chance to spend a good time, memorable time, unforgettable time, because we really we can say that Kyrgyzstan is one of the beautiful places in the world. And Mr. Zhanarbek Akaev, the Member of the Parliament, will tell a little bit more about our country, so you will have better understanding where you're expecting to go, and I hope that you will make a decision to visit Kyrgyzstan this summer and the coming fall. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. And now I have the pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Deputy, to the Parliament, Mr. Akaev, please.
Рахмат. Биринчи кезекте биздин өлкө тууралуу кызыгып, ушул жыйынга келгениңиз үчүн чоң ыраазычылык билдиребиз.
Good morning, honorable participants in the press conference. First of all, I would like to thank for your interest to our country in attending this event.
Кыргызстан бул Евразия континентиндеги эң жаш, Орто Азиядагы жалгыз ушул парламенттик башкаруудагы демократиялуу мамлекет.
Kyrgyzstan being a very young country of the Eurasian continent is a single country of the Central Asia with parliamentary government.
Батыш тарабы Өзбекстан менен чектешет, түндүгү Казакстан, түштүгү болсо ушул Тажикстан жана Кытай менен чектешет.
In the west, we border with Uzbekistan, in the north with Kazakhstan, in the south with Tajikistan and China.
Элчи мырза кеңири маалымат берип өттү. Биз айта турган көчмөндөр оюну боюнча негизи Кыргызстанга дүйнөнүн 61 өлкөсү ушул визасыз режим менен кире алат. Анын ичинде албетте ушул Швейцария да бар.
Mr. Ambassador informed you shortly about the nomad games about Kyrgyzstan, and I would like to say that Kyrgyzstan for now has visa-free regime with 61 countries.
Ушул соңку жылдары, акыркы жылдары Кыргызстанга келген туристтердин саны абдан тездик менен көбөйдү.
And in the last years, the amount of tourists who visit our country get increased.
Мисалы 2005-жылы өткөн жылы Кыргызстанга 4 миллиондон ашык турист келди.
For example, in 2015, we had 4 million of tourists.
Ушул National Geographic'тин версиясы боюнча Кыргызстан эң мыкты ушул ден соолукту калыбына келтирүүчү өлкө деп дагы табылды.
And by the version of the National Geographic, Kyrgyzstan is the top country for health recovery.
Бизде ушул тоо туризми дагы абдан өнүгүүдө.
We have very developed mountain tourism.
Биз анын ичинде мен журналист болуп иштеп жүргөндө мурда да ошол чет өлкөдөгү досторумдун бардыгын көчмөндөр оюнуна чакырганбыз да. Бирок келген четтен келген ошол көчмөндөр оюнун көргөн биздин досторубуздун бардыгы абдан ыраазы болуп, кийинки көчмөндөр оюнуна дагы сөзсүз киребиз деген ниетте кетишкен.
And for developing, for the goals of developing tourism, we are holding this Nomad Games, World Nomad Games. This time it will be second World Nomad Games 2. It will be in September this year in Issyk-Koul.
Мен уккандан бир көргөн деген жакшы сөз бар. Ошондуктан азыр биз ушул мурда өткөн көчмөндөр оюну тууралуу чакан видеого көңүлүңүздү бурсак.
And now we would like to show you a video about the World Nomad Games, about the ancient nomad culture.
Звук.
Yes, okay. So I think maybe thank you for the presentation. Thank you also for this little movie presenting the first game. So maybe just to remember us, when the idea started, the first one were 2 years ago, you know? So and why it started, why do you decide to do it, and what are you also expecting as participants? Now I think it's the Central Asian countries. Do you expect more from Latin America? There are also people nomad there, so what are the expectations?
Thank you for this question. As I said during my initial presentation, the idea was this idea was the idea of our president. So you know that Kyrgyzstan is a member of the Cooperation Council of Turkic-speaking nations, and so our president decided 4 years ago in 2012 that it would be a good idea to organize the event that would attract the peoples from the nomadic civilization. And as I said, the main mission was to restore, revive, as you say, some kind of renaissance of the general cultural heritage of the nomadic civilization. You know why this idea came to the president, as president of course explained it many times. So in an era of globalization, which is the natural process when we have this very closely interlinked world community, it's becoming more and more difficult to safeguard the cultural identity of the people. And so nomads, and I don't know whether the real nomads still live on this earth, But even if you look at the United States, you know that Americans used to move from one state to another. Even they have probably some nomadic culture in their blood. But in ancient times, when there were no international forums, when there were no international gatherings, who was spreading these cultural links? Who were building these cultural links? It was actually nomads, because they used to live in one place, they settled down in one place, and in 1 or 2 years, due to its natural circumstances, they used to move from one place to another. And they were the natural, let's say, bridge of cultural cooperation. They were taking the cultural identity of one place and taking that to another place. So there were some kind of bridge of these cultural links. And that is why I think that it was a good idea for our president to put forward this initiative, because through sport, through art, through festival, through culture and scientific components, it is the good idea to unite peoples. And in general, as you know, sport is a uniting factor. We see that in a very complicated and difficult contemporary world, we see that the sport is uniting. And that is, this idea of the president was in line with the general idea of the role sport can play, uniting people in making relations between, among nations peaceful. And so we are very happy and we are very glad that this idea was not only endorsed by our colleagues from this council, but it was endorsed by many countries of the world. And as I said, Mr. Mitan, if last time in 2014 we had athletes from 19 countries, now we're expecting 2,000 athletes from 40 countries. And what is interesting, in 2014, athletes from some European countries participated in those contests. I would name a few countries like Austria, Hungary, France, and even we have athletes from the United States. And this time we're expecting, as I said, the athletes from more countries than it was the case in 2014. And we would like to continue this trend, and I think that the next games, which are expecting in 2018, I don't know whether it will be held in Kirghizistan, another country, but I think that this idea is getting strength, and we hope that this is a very good mechanism of uniting people and bringing them together.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know if there is a question from the room. Yes, Mrs. You can push the button.
I will start here. Мен жанарга суроо берейин. Биринчи Кыргызстандан отурупмун. Жанар сен парламенттин өлкөсү катары айтсаң, ушул оюндар Кыргызстан албетте демократиялуу өлкө, бирок экономикалык кыйынчылыктар деле бар. Ушул оюндарга кантип акча таап атат Кыргыз өкмөтү, кандай сырттан жардамдар бар, ошону түшүндүрө кетсең. I'm asking a question about financial part of this event. Kyrgyzstan, while being a democratic country, but it has so many economic problems as well. So, Kyrgyz government, how it's dealing with the financial part of this event? Thank you.
Рахмат. Биринчи кезекте бул өлкөнүн бюджетинен, президенттин демилгеси менен, өкмөттүн демилгеси менен акча бөлүнүүдө. Экинчиден, ушул иш-чараны Кыргызстанды дүйнөгө таанытууну колдогон ишкерлер абдан көп. Ошолор өз каалоосу менен ушул оюндарды өткөрүүгө өздөрү кызыгып, улуттуу Кыргызстанды таанытуу үчүн, биздин каада салтты, көчмөн эл экенибизди даңазалоо үчүн өздөрү сөзсүз түрдө демеушиликтерин көргөзүп атышат. Бул бир гана ушул 7 облустун ар бир облустан келип, ушул оюндарга катышышат. Бул мына дүйнөлүк белгилүү медиалар абдан бул тууралуу көп жазды. Ушул көчмөндөр оюну өткөндөн кийин дагы бир канча ай туристтердин агымы ушул статистика боюнча мындай Кыргызстанга көп келген да. Көп келген. Ошондуктан бул бюджеттен сарпталчу акчаларды өзүн өзү кайра оордун толтура турган иш-чара деп эсептелет.
Yes, I would like to translate for our guests that the bulk, of course, of the budget, the bulk of the financing is coming from the national budget. And of course, as usually in many other parts of the world, this event is supported financially by sponsors and by other organizations. You know that we expect actual representatives of 7 provinces of Kyrgyzstan. And Mr. Akaev also has indicated that there was a wide coverage of the first World Nomad Games back in 2014. So after, in the wake of those games, of course, the number of foreign tourists has dramatically increased, and we're expecting the same development this time. We hope that this event will not only attract the attention of people who are interested in nomadic civilization, but it will also attract tourists and guests from all over the world to Kyrgyzstan. So they will be able to visit Kyrgyzstan and to find the beauty of the country.
Thank you. I had also questions about the sports, because I think it's mainly with horses, but you give the name in Kirghiz, so for me it's a little bit difficult to understand. Maybe could you explain different sports like Kokbori or Shabish, I don't know. You know, what are the main sports, because it's maybe not very common or usual here in Western Europe. More details, because for instance, we have also in Switzerland with cows. I have seen in, I don't remember, maybe in Uzbekistan something with cows, not with horses. But we call cow games in Valais, for instance. It's not with horses, but just to have more explanations about that.
Yes, I didn't mention the names of the sport disciplines deliberately, because maybe it would be quite complicated for you to understand. But the question is very fine, and I would like to give a brief information about what kind of 4 disciplines that athletes are expecting to participate in upcoming events. As you said, the major, of course, the major sport discipline is the horse racing. But horse racing has different elements. We have horse racing for small distance, for medium distance, or for the long distance. For example, there is a world discipline, Chonga Chabush, for example, is up to 60 kilometers, you see, but we have also other kinds of horse racing which has less distances. The second major sport discipline is different kinds of wrestling. And we will present not only the wrestling of Kyrgyz people, but also we will present different types of wrestling from neighboring countries, like it was the case in 2014 from Turkmenistan, from Azerbaijan, from Kazakhstan. Actually, all these countries of nomadic civilization have similar wrestling disciplines with certain slight differences. But anyway, the main idea is some kind of the wrestling. So the third major sport discipline is archery. And this is archery which is conducted on the horse or just at distance, and they would contest both for accuracy and for the speed, etc. Also, what is very interesting, apart from these combat disciplines, so like archery, horse racing and others, we have the intellectual game. And it is called the Touz Korgol, so it means, I don't know how to explain it, it is a kind of, let's say, the nomadic chess game. So I would like to emphasize again that contrary to the widely held stereotypes about the militaristic character of nomad, as a person who is, I don't know, invading other country, we have with that kind of stereotype. Nomads used to have normal free time or the peaceful time, and during the peaceful time they played not only this combat sport discipline, but also intellectual ones. And also I would like to elaborate a little bit on the third component of the forthcoming games, that, as I said at the outset, it consists of three main dimensions: the sport, culture, and scientific. So this time we're going to hold the scientific conference, which will unite scholars and experts from nomadic countries, and they will discuss the ways how the nomadic civilization had or is having impact on the world, let's say the world civilization, other parts of the world. So also there will be a scientific part of this event. So I can talk a lot about that, but if you visit, you will be impressed. You will be impressed really, because even ourselves, Kyrgyz citizens, we are impressed when we go to remote areas, to villages, and we are impressed by these games. It's a time when you forget everything. You get, you become comfort, you become calm, you enjoy these games, and please find the time in your busy schedule to visit Kyrgyzstan and witness those games with your own eyes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Compliments. So yes, please.
Hi, my name is Ivar. I'm from Norway. I've spent a lot of time in Kyrgyzstan and very often and in other places in Central Asia. Friends in Norway and elsewhere in Europe, they often ask for advice. You know, we want to go to Central Asia, where should we go? And my answer is always, well, obviously go first to Kyrgyzstan. Because of, there are many reasons, but, visa-free, the scenery is the nicest, it's got the nicest food, I think, in the region, most welcoming, all sorts of reasons to pick Kyrgyzstan over many of the others. But I'm wondering if you could say something about sort of what's being done in advertisement efforts for tourism in the West to make sure that people sort of understand how Kyrgyzstan is different from, say, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan. Because I think a lot of the time people group them together and they don't know that there are big differences between these countries in terms of everything from price to the kind of things that you can see there. Sometimes you'll see, on CNN some Azerbaijan commercial or something like that, but I haven't seen that much of Kyrgyzstan.
Кыргызстанга баргандар ушул аэропорттон түшкөндө эле мындай меймандостукту сезишет.
So every single guest who is arriving to Kyrgyzstan, upon arrival at the airport, Mr. Akaev said that he or she feels the hospitality of Kyrgyz people.
Мисалы жыл сайын Кыргызстанга барган туристтердин саны 10%дан өсүп жатат.
So the number of foreign tourists visiting Kyrgyzstan is increasing by 10% every year.
Мунун өзү бизде азыр биздин өлкөдө ушул саясий стабилдүүлүк орногонун, тейлүүнүн жакшырганын, шарттардын жакшырганын билдирет да.
And the main factors which help to attract foreign tourists is, of course, political stability of the country and all the comfortable conditions that the authorities are trying to actually to organize.
Burada барган туристтердин көпчүлүгү ушул бир гана Issyk-Koulга барса, азыр тоо туризмине кызыккандардын саны көбөйдү, ошондой эле ат минүүнү каалагандардын саны мисалы.
Just as an example, we are witnessing an increase of tourists which are interested in the mountainous tourism. So I would like to add from myself that Kyrgyzstan is one of the most, I would say, if you will, mountainous countries in the world.
Акыркы убакта бизде ушу кышкы туризм да жакшы жолго коюлду. Мисалы ошол эле Караколго, Лыжный базага кошуна өлкөлөрдөн алыс жактан баргандардын саны абдан көп.
And aside from, I would say, the summer tourism, now we are developing very rapidly the winter tourism, and we have built many wonderful ski resorts, and one of them is Karakol ski resort, which is located close to Issyk-Koul. And I would like to add as regard what Kyrgyzstan is doing. Yes. we have, I would say, 193 UN members. So we have 193 countries in the world. And many of them, of course, compete for tourists. And it is a natural process. It is, I would say, tough competition, because all of them would like to have as much tourists as possible, especially from Europe, and you mentioned Europe. Of course, compared with, as you said, Azerbaijan authorities' attempts to have these commercials, were, I would say, more modest in this regard, in this endeavor. Yes, to be frank with you, sometimes we lack enough or sufficient financial resources to advertise our country. But our missions, diplomatic missions in European capitals, we try our best to use our diplomatic efforts in order to attract tourists. And this is one of the efforts. So we decided to organize this event in order to share with you, with locals, with foreigners who live in Geneva, information about Kyrgyzstan. And as Mr. Akaev rightly emphasized, the political stability, the beauty of the country are one of the most attractive factors. And I totally agree with you, and I think the same line, that maybe Kyrgyzstan needs to do more in order to attract more tourists. And so we are trying our best to be successful in this endeavor. And so we also count on those tourists who have already visited Kyrgyzstan. And we see that after their visits, their relatives, their friends, even members of the community they live in, they just call us all the time and ask. And finally, I would like to mention, and you were right, one of their main efforts was to introduce visa-free regime for 45 countries, for countries which have per capita more than $7,000 per capita, I would say. So this applies mostly to European countries, and actually all European countries are in the list of the countries which can, whose citizens can travel to Kyrgyzstan for up to 60 days. What is needed is just to buy tickets, no invitation, no registration, just you buy tickets and you fly to Bishkek or any other city or town of Kyrgyzstan. You arrive, you pass easily, and then you're in Kyrgyzstan. And so, thank you so much, by the way, and you're from Norway. And Norway, I have been to Norway, and I know how you pay attention to touristic sector. Of course, there are a lot to learn from you, but thank you so much for your for telling your friends that you have to visit Kyrgyzstan, showing and pointing your finger at the on Kyrgyzstan at the map. Correct place, right place. And so, finally, every nation, of course, tends to praise itself, saying that we are the beautiful country. Sometimes, even the people who live in the deserts, they can say this is the best place in the world, because he or she was born in the desert, and sands are the most beautiful place, and we totally agree with that. And I will, by the same token, I can say about Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan is a really beautiful country. Sometimes ourselves, we Kyrgyz, do not appreciate it. So sometimes, in most cases, foreigners appreciate it. And so despite the difficulties we face, we hope that we're in the right direction and everything will be on the track with the help of tourists. And when you travel to Kyrgyzstan, come back to your countries. So you are the main advertisement for Kyrgyzstan. And I hope that we will work in this direction together. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you very much for your presentations. I'd like to ask you two questions. One is, as a foreigner who doesn't have much, who don't have much knowledge about nomad culture, in this competition, you mentioned about national boxing competitions, wrestling competitions. I wonder, since different nomadic civilizations have different wrestlings, how can you compete? How can you let them compete when they have different wrestling rules? And so basically, my question is, I mean, if carrying out ethnic or national wrestlings of different nomadic civilizations, how can you let a world wrestling competition for very specific types of wrestlings? Would it be do these wrestling competitions be participated only by people who already practice, or can nomadic people from other civilizations also participate in? That's and so that's one question. And another question is, there are different nomadic civilizations in the world. In this world nomadic games, how much of these civilizations are represented in the games? Is it only the major nomadic civilizations who are represented, or are you covering most of them or all of them? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your interesting question. As regard to your first question about different types of wrestling, I understand, but every wrestling discipline has its own rules. So of course, when athletes make an application to participate in certain, let's say, wrestling discipline, he or she needs to know the rules. Yes, you're right. We have, let's say, the Kirghiz wrestling, we have Turkmen wrestling, Kazakh wrestling, but every type of wrestling has its own rules. So it is like in a, let's say, traditional wrestling, Olympic wrestling. So we have different types, and every athlete has to adjust himself to the specific rules of that specific type of wrestling. So it doesn't mean that they use different mechanisms, different, I would say, movements. So they have to adjust themselves to the specific rules. This is about your first question. About the second question, we are not confining these nomad games to, let's say, representatives of major streams of the nomadic civilization. Even in 2014, we had athletes from the country, which I don't know, maybe traditionally or classically, you do not refer them as the nomadic civilization. But we had from Antigua and Barbuda, for example, or we had representatives from South Korea, or from Austria, as I said, or France. Normally, you would not call them representatives of nomadic civilization. So our doors are open for everybody who wants to participate in different capacities in the forthcoming event, in the capacity of athletes, in the capacity of journalists, just tourists, spectator, or coach or trainer, etc. So no limits, no confinement. The main idea is to grasp the concept of the nomadic civilization. So the more countries are represented in this coming event, the better, not just for Kyrgyzstan, but for everybody. Because as I underlined at the beginning, the main mission is to unite people. And sport is the best vehicle to unite people, to make them live in peace and harmony. And nomadic games also allow us to live in peace, not only among themselves, but with the nature. Because nomads, the life of nomad, has been always associated with nature, with environment. And we used to live in harmony with it. And that is a basic idea, the basic concept. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions and answers. You have another one, so
yes.
please.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Yes, I'm very interested. I'm very curious about the link between nature and the nomadic civilization. Could you give me specific examples about how nomadic people have been living in harmony with nature? Because I'm from Japan, and also we have a civilization, we have a culture of living in harmony with nature, and I'm very interested in the Kirghiz way or nomadic people's way of respecting and living in harmony with nature. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would start with saying that I think that the best way is to be happy is to live in harmony with yourself. This is the best way. But when we talk about the harmony with nature, that is the most, I think, important issue in nowadays. When we talk about sustainable development, what is sustainable development? Is to live in harmony with environment. So to leave environment intact for the future generations. That is, I think, the basic concept of sustainable development. So nomads. I don't want to use very complicated philosophical words to explain how nomads used to live in harmony with the nature. But look, just the structure of their life. They start living in one place. They build their dwelling, yurt. They use the nature for, I don't know, feeding their animals, feeding themselves. And in 6 months or 1 year, they decide to move from one another place. So they collect their belongings, including dwelling, their animals, their cattle, and they move to another place. And if you visit the place they used to live, you see nothing, the same nature. So they didn't have to exploit the place where they used to live. They just used the nature, because nature is giving everything to us. And when we use it wisely, and just you put this place intact and they move to another place. And this circle goes on and on and on. But when people settle down in one place, of course, the exploitation of nature is becoming, let's say, more aggressive, because you live in one place and you have to use what the nature gives to you on a daily basis. And then, it doesn't mean that they do not live in harmony with, but for nomads, since they change the places, it is the natural that they live in harmony with the nature. Sorry if I use too complicated things, but that is my personal understanding how nomads used to live in harmony with the environment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there another question, the last one? If not, I have to thank you again, to wish you all the best for the second World Nomad Games, and maybe I will book my time for not this year because it's not possible, but maybe in 2018 to organize a visit in Kirghizistan during the third Games, if possible. Yeah.
Taking this opportunity, I would like to thank you again. So if you want to feel what nomad means, you have to travel to Kirghizistan. When you travel from one place to another, you become nomad. If you stay here in Switzerland without moving anywhere, you are not nomad. So in order to understand, please come to Kirghizistan. Okay, even your flight with modern airplane will be the way of how nomads feel themselves in this environment. Thank you so much, and have a lovely day, and I hope to see you on a hospitable land soil of Kirghizistan. Thank you, and maybe Mr. Akaev would like to add something.
Kırgızistan'a dünyada belgili göçmenler oyununa көп мындай каттуу адамдар келет. Мен аны айтпай турайын, аны Иссык-Көлдө силер менен чогуу көрөбүз. Көрүшкөнчө.
Thank you, and I would like to highlight that the coming games will be attended by very famous people from all over the world, and I don't want to name them. I would like you to see those faces in Kyrgyzstan during those games. Thank you.